you know, when you're getting ready, you're getting dressed and, you know, you're putting your clothes on or your makeup or whatever. And you look in the mirror and you're like, I like what I see.
Tonight's
You're
gonna
like,
be
okay, I
it.
still got
But
it.
you like what you see enough to be
Tonight
like,
will be
I
it."
could be a little naughty. That feeling of like feeling a little naughty is what we wanted to capture with Bombón. It's a fragrance that has a marshmallow on top, a lily of the valley, and a cognac in the bottom.
Where does it take you, James?
There's something very burlesque about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I might be a crazy horse in Paris as I'm smelling this.
Exactly.
Hi, I'm James Manso, the beauty market editor at WWD and Beauty Inc. I've been covering beauty for women's wear for years now, and a key part of what we do is monitoring both established and emerging brands in all categories, including fragrance. So 2 years ago, when a colleague of mine reached out to me and said that there were some friends of friends launching a fragrance brand called House of Beau, obviously I jumped on it. I don't know if you guys remember this. We met over tacos and margaritas at like 5 p.m. on a Friday in the West Village.
And I still go to that restaurant.
Yeah.
How could we forget?
The Brussels sprouts tacos are worth it. And despite the tequila involved, like it is so clear in my memory. I remember thinking to myself, first of all, the olfactive quality of the juices, the craftsmanship of the bottles. You had shot this incredible launch campaign. And frankly, it was kind of surprising to see a couple beauty rookies do everything right. So I would love to just start by getting a sense from you of the inception of the brand and how you knew what to do and what guided you through that process when you were pre-launch.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Actually, I remember we had the campaign video when we first met, right?
Yes.
And that was like a whole thing. I mean, there was probably like a year's worth of work
Yes.
right before we met
Very
James.
hard work.
And I mean, to be honest, like we had no idea what we were doing. Like we had no idea of
Zero.
anything in the beauty industry.
Which is not evident. by the way.
Giancarlo is a neurosurgeon. I worked in real estate for 16 years. So, but all I knew was like my passion for fragrance, right? And I think I was so passionate that I just attracted the right mentorship from a lot of people that we knew or people that we knew that they knew. And we just
That
had
brought us to you.
that we just
For
had like a
example.
really good group of people that were just so helpful and guided us
that
a lot in a lot of ways.
I can't believe, first of all, that you never went to our home, but we always had a fragrance room. We had a fragrance room, and Bernardo was very passionate about fragrance, but I don't think he ever seriously contemplated doing anything about it. And his father was a very influential man in the way he lived his life. Like he did exactly what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. No excuses. Walking barefoot on the beach. He's just that kind of person. And it didn't really hit us until, unfortunately, he passed away from COVID. And it really was like an aha moment for my husband, for Bernardo, where he was like, I don't want to do real estate. Like, I want to do something that I love. I want to do something with intention and purpose. And I remember we were on vacation in Dominican Republic. And I remember like yesterday, he's like, what if I made a fragrance house? We created a fragrance house together. And I was like, well, I mean, that's a big ask, but I'm sure that we will figure it out. And his passion and his dedication, I mean, that was the first day I met another husband and another human being, and that passion that he put into it and drive brought us to lunch in a year and meet you in a year.
We were just talking about yesterday how much, like we both changed, but I've changed just in the last 3 years in terms of like,
oh my God,
the way I was before, and not like in a bad way, but I think I just kind of was floating through life without like a clear purpose or intention. And I think, as Giancarlo told you, the situation with my dad really just changed the course of my life. Sometimes when somebody so close to you passes away, I think naturally you're going to have a lot of questions. And for me, it just took me on this journey of like figuring out my own purpose and passion with life. And of course, fragrance was something that I always had in mind. And in personally, in private, I had already kind of built Beau. I had the name, all the perfumes that I wanted to launch with, the noses that I wanted to collaborate, but it just seemed like a dream, right? And then, we finally did it.
Now we're living the dream.
And didn't you also cold reach out to Rodrigo?
I did,
to do the first 3 fragrances?
Yes.
Yes, actually. So Rodrigo Flores-Roux, I knew about him for a long time because my first fragrance was Happy by Clinique, which was his like big
claim to fame.
And I discovered that fragrance in my mother's bathroom, and I appropriated,
among other things.
But yeah, so I knew about him, and I always knew that my first collaboration in an ideal world would be with Rodrigo, because of course he's Mexican, and I cold called him, and he said yes.
He didn't hang up the phone on you?
No,
not at all.
No, I mean, I was really prepared. I have to say, I didn't know anything about the beauty industry, but for the first time in my life, I was like prepared with everything. I had like a 40 page slide presentation.
I was like, you know what PowerPoint is?
I didn't, but I figured it out. And what I presented really just spoke to him. I think the way he will explain it was he saw like a very clear idea, and he was like, I wanna be part of it.
And can you tell me a little bit of the name House of Beau?
Yeah.
And how you came up with it?
So Beau was a name that I always liked from a really long time ago. It's a short minimalist name, and it's a phonetic sound for beautiful or bonito. It's just a name that I always knew I was going to use, and it goes in line with our brand, which is about like simplicity and minimalism.
It's a very simple word that has a very special meaning, right? Which is beauty. And we wanted to create beautiful products when it comes to storytelling, when it comes to the ingredients, when it came to visuals, everything. And that's why we call it the House of Beau. It's a house of beautiful things.
This is really about like hand sculpted caps, right? These are natural stones. So a lot of people don't know these, but these are real gemstones that are hand sculpted individually, one by local Mexican artisans. We do very short production runs of our fragrances because we really want to focus on like the quality of the materials, the ingredients. So they're really kind of like little, jewels, very precious little jewels. And I really wanted like every single detail, because this is a passion of mine. I wanted to kind of like highlight, the ingredients was such a big part. The bottle, the glass is hand polished, cap is hand sculpted. So just a lot of little details that you don't find in mass. And we purposely set this company up in that way so that it really felt like something precious and special.
And that clarity of vision has now translated into your third trio of scents, which I would love to dive in with you guys on. So can you tell me a bit? We're going to start with my personal favorite, Oro Verde.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about the story behind each and the olfactive profiles? But we're going to start with
Oro Verde.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, these are our 3 new fragrances. And what I've been doing is releasing 3. And there's always kind of like a woody one, a floral one, and more of a citrus fresh one. And for this particular collection, what I wanted to do was kind of 3 different journeys for the wearer or the customer to really choose that day what they wanted to experience.
So if you wanted to be off like adventurous and off the beaten path, you were Oro Verde. If you want to be youthful, coquette, sensual, you use Bombón. Mm-hmm. And if you're in the more like creative, introspective kind of set of or mindset than you were Casa Blanca. So we wanted to create a transportive collection that was more about how you wanted to feel or what you wanted to project that day.
And Oro Verde, the first one, which we know is your favorite. Do you want to share about the first time you smelled Oro Verde?
Oh gosh, we were at dinner. I think this must have been a year and a half ago because it was right after the launch of the second trio.
Ah, that's right.
And so it was that weekend when you guys were in town. We went out to dinner and I was sitting next to you and you were wearing it. And I was like, I was like smelling your neck. It was probably invasive. and I was like, what are you wearing? I need to know what this is. And you're like, oh, it's something. You were still tweaking it. And then you pulled out like a tester or a lab sample and sprayed me. And then I was still obsessed with it, and you guys were obsessed with it on me.
Yes.
So I'm so happy to see it on the market.
On I remember your eyes like just changed when you first smell it.
I have to say this on camera. James has the best skin for perfume ever.
He does.
Ever.
He does.
Every time we want to taste
At least
something.
for House of Bow fragrances, they all smell really good.
They all of them. Even the moths that there's been moths that I haven't liked. And then when I smelled it in your skin, I'm like, it's not that bad. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I will be your tester any day. Which, can we dive in? Can
Yes.
we start spraying?
So, Oro Verde is inspired by this trip through the South American jungle. So you can picture like going through the rugged terrain, the dirt or the mud, and a very lush foliage of like the jungle, and maybe like a cascade, water from a cascade, right? It's a fragrance that we wanted to kind of center around a cannabis. So it's cannabis, green watermelon, and Palo Santo. And
light cannabis, you're not going to get high from it. Don't worry, people.
No. And it took me a long time to do this fragrance with Adriana Medina, by the way, who's from Colombia. And we just got along really well. And when I presented this idea to her, she was so excited because she just felt really connected to the storytelling. And it took me a long time because cannabis can certainly be something that can be a little
polarizing,
yeah. And at the beginning, it literally smelled like...
Well, there's a funny story. When we started doing Oro Verde, it was very hard, very much cannabis. It was like, that's the main note. And we went to Saudi Arabia, and Bernardo thought that it was a good idea to spray this mod on my hand while we were in a flight. And the stewardess came and they were trying to literally, they did not believe, Bernardo, this was a perfume.
They didn't.
And I was like, how dare you do this to me in the middle of like nowhere?
It was a little scary.
Yeah, this is stressing me out secondhand.
Yes,
I didn't know this story.
Yes.
And then
so bad.
when I would like put it on friends, they were like, Bernardo, this is like, you'll get like stopped on the street because people are going to think that you're smoking, marijuana. So anyway, fast forward to like a year and a half later when you smelled it, it really, it started to, it was just like a nod with the cannabis, right? So now, like, if I didn't tell you that it had cannabis, you probably wouldn't know. And if you did, it's only like the first maybe like 15, 20 seconds.
I think that note is like actually the sherry on top. It's a beautiful
it's
top
what makes
note.
it different.
It makes it different, and yet it's so fresh and refreshing. You feel clean, but you're in the middle of the jungle. The juxtaposition of those things are amazing.
Right. It's very elevated. It's very herbaceous, fresh, complex. Like, it does not smell like my public California high school.
Exactly.
It's not that kind of cannabis.
Exactly.
No, and I purposely wanted to kind of like do that juxtaposition of this, maybe more of a funky ingredient with these more like a direction that was in a way a little more commercial. So when you do smell it, you do have like those two elements where it is something that's like watery and green, but then there's a little bit of like a mossiness or a little bit of a funkiness that you don't know what it is, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of this fragrance. It's something that we actually filmed for
Discovery Channel.
Discovery Plus, the whole behind the scenes with Adriana creating this fragrance. So it's a fragrance that I wear a lot.
Well, I'm very curious too. You came into the business with a pretty strong knowledge of the different noses and the different suppliers. When you are thinking about how to expand and what you want to launch, are you thinking olfactively? Are you thinking, I'm obsessed with this perfumer and I must work with them? I don't actually care what it smells like. Are you looking at gaps in your existing portfolio? How do you think about
all of
newness?
the above? All of them. I think that definitely for me, it's initially like I had I have my idols that I always wanted to create something with, and because I'm a fan, I've known like what they're, in my opinion, what they're really good at. So sometimes it will be something kind of like created specifically for them, based on what I think they're really good at. But sometimes, it really is a concept or an idea that I had thought a long time ago, and like ideas just come randomly for me. Like, for example, with Rosario, which is another of our fragrances, it just came to me at a talk. I was at a Athena Calderon's talk in Miami, and she was speaking about like how she started. And somehow I got like this whiff in the air that reminded me of this moment going to school in Mexico. And there was like a rose market and they sold pomegranate in a cup with lemon and chile. And anyway, all those notes are incorporated in Rosario. But yeah, Oro Verde is...
I think it's all the above, like you said. That you also think about range. You're like, we need something like this, and then you get inspired. There's other times. There's been one where Bernardo met an idol of his, and he had a very, very out of left field idea, and this perfumer was like, why did you choose me? And Bernardo told him, because I know that of anyone, you would be the one who would know how to execute this. And it's been the first time that I've smelled the first mod and been like, done.
Well, is the fragrance out? Can you share with the class?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
It's with Dominique Rupion.
Oh,
yes.
Amazing.
And it is fantastic.
It's one of Giancarlo's favorite. But yeah.
Have I smelled this one?
No, I don't think you smell this.
Okay, well, we're going to change that. But I don't know that I've smelled Casa Blanca. Can we dive into that one?
Of course. So Casa Blanca is the journey of like self-reflection, right? I can picture somebody maybe in the creative arts wearing this. Is a house, Casa Blanca, a house of like white ingredients. So almost like a temple. If you can imagine going into a temple and there's, it smells all like white ingredients. So white oud, white suede, white tea, and then we added a little bit of fig to give it that addiction. So it really, fig is kind of like the hero ingredient here, but it just kind of lives in this beautiful house of, white ingredients. And it's a fragrance that I've had for a really long time. We did this with Frank Voelkl, and it's been a favorite in our team, in our group of friends. Jocelyn, she's been like, Jocelyn is a friend of ours.
Of all of us.
And I remember the first time she smelled it, she's like, Bernardo, this is the fragrance. Believe me. And it took me a while to release them because I wanted to kind of release the other ones in a specific order, just because they made sense in a lot of other ways.
Can we smell it?
Yes. So tell me when you smell it, like, what do you think of? Or what, not necessarily an ingredient, but more like,
where does it take you?
Where does it take you? Exactly. If it were like an environment.
Okay.
Like,
pressure's on.
Not that he just told you where he means to take you.
Honestly, like, I'm not going to say anywhere super exotic. It smells like Saturday morning on like crisp, freshly laundered, like silk sheets. That's what it smells like to me.
To me, it smells cozy too.
Yeah.
It smells something I want to, live in. That's the way that I would describe it.
And also a little bit like you want to eat it, that the fig gives it a sweetness that you just want to kind of like, it's definitely one of those fragrances that you keep smelling and smelling. Like sometimes with fragrances, There's some that you just keep, that has that like addiction to it. For me, the environment, and I've told Giancarlo always, like, this is kind of like maybe somewhere on the coast in the Mediterranean, not somewhere where there's like palm trees, more like pine trees, or even like a forest of fig trees on the coast, because there's like a minerality to it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very unisex.
It is very unisex.
I call ourselves like experiential slow perfumery, right? Because it's like done in small batches. Everything is down. Every detail is down to a T. Is thought about in the most extreme way, and there's always an intention to whatever we create. We want to make you feel something. We want to make you feel be more conscientious or more mindful. And I feel like that messaging has gotten across, and I feel like that has resonated a lot with people more than anything.
Well, that brings an interesting point. Thinking about the artisanal handmade caps in Mexico and the small batches and the concentration of the juices. I'm also curious, this brand pays such homage to your Mexican heritage, right? At the same time that you're creating newness and new product. So how do you balance that respect for tradition with the drive to innovate?
So for me, it was something that was really important, my heritage, and not only obviously because I grew up in Mexico and it's such a big part of my life, but also there was a bit of a window in the fragrance industry, where fragrance storytelling is always European, it's always Italian and French, and it was never. There's been instances before where Mexico is kind of like mentioned, but not like the main focus, right? And that's something that I really, knew
And
from
that's
the
where
beginning.
we found the innovation.
Yeah.
We found the innovation in authentic storytelling that stayed true to his heritage and where he came from. And for us, me being an honorary Mexican was a very prideful moment to be able to like highlight how rich this country is in like resources, in beauty, in craftsmanship. It's unparalleled, really.
And speaking of your Mexican heritage, the name Bombón is Spanish. Can you translate it for the listeners?
Yes, so bombón, specifically in Mexico, un bombón it's a marshmallow. But more than that, it's somebody who's like very sensual, a little like coquette, or
In Latin America, it's a
flirtatious.
term of endearment as well.
Yeah.
Like when you see someone who like an attractive person, it's like,
Like-
oh, eso es un bombón.
And it could be a man or a woman, by the way.
Yes.
It is un bombón, or sometimes you even refer to somebody just like, oye, bombón, me pasas,
Yeah.
can you hand me the... But with Bombón, it's a fragrance that I'm super, super proud of, because I got to work with Honorine Blanc, who is... Giancarlo's like secretly
I'm
obsessed with her.
Not secretly, I'm obsessed with her. She's the queen of sensuality in my eyes.
She really is. She's so good at addiction and sensuality. And with this fragrance, it was all about self-indulgence, right? So we wanted to create a fragrance that when you smelled it, it made you feel flirtatious or kind of maybe a little frisky. And I put this example sometimes, like, when you're getting ready, you're getting dressed, and you're putting your clothes on or your makeup or whatever, and you look in the mirror and you're like, I like what I see.
Tonight's
You're
gonna
like,
be
okay, I
it.
still got
But
it.
you like what you see enough to be
Tonight
like,
will be
I
it."
could be a little naughty. That feeling of like feeling a little naughty is what we wanted to capture with Bombón. It's a fragrance that has a marshmallow on top, a lily of the valley, and a cognac in the bottom. So it's initially was like really, the idea was centered around lily of the valley, which is one of my favorite favorite flowers, and I wanted to kind of like pay homage to lily of the valley, but in a very indulgent, decadent way. And of course, because there's this floral part to it, the cognac really grounds it in a way where I kind of like to say that it's an interplay of contrast of the innocence of this lily of the valley, the more like flamboyant campness of a marshmallow, and then like a more classic, old school gentleman, perhaps with a cognac, right? So you have those three different personalities in this fragrance. It's what do you smell?
Where does it take you, James?
Where does it take me? I think it takes me to, like, if there's something very burlesque about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I might be a crazy horse in Paris as I'm smelling this.
Exactly. I think it's our take. It's a house of bold take on a gourmand. It's a gourmand, but it's not like too empalagoso, which means it's not like, you know, when you have too much of something sweet. It's just the right amount, and it also has this beautiful pink pepper that Honorine put that opens it up. It's very airy at the same time, and it makes it youthful and sensual and coquette.
And coquette, yes, is Giancarlo's favorite.
Yes,
he wears it all the time, and it's funny because yes, it is kind of like a white floral gourmand, a house of beau gourmand in a way, but you know, I can see this on men as well. It's something that Giancarlo usually would not wear a floral. There's a part of this fragrance, and I was telling you earlier today, which is not, you know, olfactively a reference that I want to use, but there's a certain point of this fragrance. And, you know, Angel has that thing where it kind of like stays, there's an element of Angel that stays in your nose and you'll remember it. And also when you're walking, you're kind of like smelling. Not olfactively, but there is an element in Bombón that you just can't forget.
And plus people love it. Clearly people love it.
Yeah, it's a favorite so far.
Didn't it sell out in one day?
Yes.
Sold out on our DTC, yes.
Yes, good problems to have.
Yeah.
My favorite. I called it.
Just so the listeners can understand a bit of your personal relationships with fragrance. Bernardo, I'd love to ask you, since, well, I now find out that you have a fragrance room in your house. I'm sure you have dozens, if not hundreds. What's the first one you remember buying?
The first one I remember buying, it was probably like, you know, Crave by by Calvin Klein. I don't know if you remember that. Crave.
Yeah,
no,
it wasn't like CK1.
No, it would before that. It was. I just remember buying that one. It was in like a plastic bottle with orange, and I think it was the ad.
I mean,
the ad was this like beautiful, handsome model and like shirtless,
and then he craved it.
Yeah.
Giancarlo, what about you? It's the first fragrance you ever bought.
You know, I think it was Cool Waters. It was just like one of those.
Know this one.
Yeah, you're too young. You're too young. You know, in high school, it was like if you didn't have that fragrance, you were no one. Yes. And I was obsessed with it. I'm sure it's very different now if I smelt it, but at that moment, it made me feel cool.
See, I mean, it's
yeah.
Classic.
That's so interesting. I was not wearing Cool Waters in high school.
I bet you weren't.
You know, I was Tom Ford Black Orchid. Like, my brand is nothing if not consistent. I would go to school in that fragrance when I was like 17.
Wow. And what did people say? Black Orchid is so strong. It's a beautiful fragrance.
Oh, everyone like James, like, you smell so good.
Really?
James, you smell so
I'm
sexy.
I'm not surprised.
And it's like a sweaty day in San Diego where I grew up. I'm also curious, since buying these fragrances and now creating your own, how have your tastes and your preferences evolved?
Oh, wow. I mean, I've grown up a lot from this kind of like the fragrances that I used to wear. And then maybe like I think we both went through this phase of a little more like offensive in your face scents at one point. I feel like there was a couple years there.
You did. I never.
No?
No.
Well, I did.
That's on you, buddy.
And then,
I think that we've refined our palate. When we smell things, we're looking for like the quality of the ingredient. Where is that tuberose from, or that jasmine from? We have a deeper appreciation of the ingredients and how well the fragrance is blended. It's just like becoming like a chef or a food critic, right? I used to I enjoy food, but if I'm a food critic, I see it another way. And now I think that we delve a lot. We go into what we smell, and we know a lot more than before.
Definitely. Yeah.
Before it used to be ads. Now it's more than the ad.
Well, I was going to say, and does this newfound knowledge deepen your appreciation for any of the scents of your past? Or are you like, I cannot believe I used to wear that?
There's more of I cannot believe that I used to wear that. Just because it used to be, it didn't have the same intention when I used to buy fragrances. I used to buy it because CK1, it's the guy without the shirt. I was in high school and I wanted to be him. And, it was more superficial and ethereal. And now it's, like I said, with more intention, and I know more.
Oh, but CK1 is so good. I smelled it on a girlfriend the other day, and I was like, you smell fabulous.
Yes,
what are you wearing? She was like, CK1. And it was like not
But
the
one of the
answer I was
newer
looking for.
versions.
No, the OG.
Really? I feel the same way with Giancarlo. I feel like, we've evolved in such a way that I would say there's a lot of how did I wear that? Now, like, I'm so, especially me, like, I'm so picky about certain ingredients, or like certain level of ingredients, or like certain quality of ingredients. Like for me, especially with House of Bo, right? Because it's all about nature. Like, I love when a fragrance smells like natural ingredients. So something that's a little too synthetic, even though I can appreciate it, it's not for me.
Okay, so now that we know what your fragrances smell like, what you smell like, what does your house smell like?
So it's kind of like this woody scent with green. It's a combination of some candles that I've been working on, but it's like a combination of woody and greenness. Yeah.
That's as much as we can say now. But it smells delicious. That much we can say.
Okay, so to switch things up, I'm going to play a little game with you guys. But so what's going to happen is I'm going to be asking each of you questions about the other, and you will both write your answers on the whiteboards, and you will be verifying them, and we get to find out how well you know each other.
Okay.
If not, we'll edit this, right?
Since Bernardo seems to be the more enthusiastic one,
Okay.
I would love to hear from you. What was the very first scent that Giancarlo fell in love with?
His first scent that he fell in love with.
And I have to write it down too, right?
Yes.
Okay. So,
what if you'll remember this?
Okay, well then,
Show.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you do have it.
Yeah.
Yves Saint Laurent 24
Yes.
University,
Yeah.
Ruder University, something like that.
Yes.
He was obsessed with this scent. Obsessed. It's still on the market. It's a great fragrance, but you never. I mean, we have it in the house. You never wear it anymore.
I'm not gonna cheat
I
on my
think
children.
No,
Come
but
on
you
now.
also you wore it so much.
I did.
That-
I did.
Wow.
I am really surprised that you remembered. This is why I don't like this game, because he's gonna remember more than me.
Well, now you
Yeah.
get to tell us if you know as much as you think you do or not. I'm curious if Bernardo could only take one scent with him on a desert island, what would it be?
Well, if we were to travel now, he would use this fragrance.
I already know he didn't choose it right.
Really?
I already love that I get to
See?
peek and see what it is.
I hate this.
Okay,
So,
pens
I mean-
down. Let's flip them.
Oro Verde.
Oro Verde. Why
Well,
did
Okay,
you
turn
choose
yours
it?
all
around.
right. So mine, I kind of like if it weren't one of my fragrances. Bond number 9 has this fragrance called Fire Island that I love, and it's like a great vacation fragrance.
But
You know that.
But I said
If you wouldn't have chosen that one, you would have chosen.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
But I said if you were to travel now.
Oh yeah, but I didn't want to cheat because I had already written.
So Bernardo, what scent does Giancarlo reach for when he needs a mood boost?
I know.
I would say Bombón.
That's true.
What is wrong
that was
with
my
you?
bad.
What did you write?
I wrote Rosario.
Oh, well, it was. He's not wrong. It was, and now I'm like in the mood of Bombón.
He's in his honeymoon phase.
Yes,
with
I'm in the
Bombón.
honeymoon phase with Bombón, but that is absolutely right. Another point for Bernardo, 0 for me. It's okay.
So Giancarlo, I'm curious, what fragrance does Bernardo choose to transition from day to night?
I reveal. Infinitoud is a fragrance.
Infinitoud! Yes.
Amazing.
I think, yeah, we both love this fragrance. It's one of our ouds. It's a very wearable oud, but it's more of a, I think, the most formal fragrance that we have in our collection. And yeah.
It's like the epitome of understated elegance. I love it.
Oh, you like Infinitoud.
Yeah, I was like, thank you for saying that. I was wearing it when I walked in here.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And look at you.
So I'm curious now, Bernardo, if you had to choose a signature scent for Giancarlo, what would it be and why? Giancarlo, I love that you're having a harder time picking your signature scent than your husband is.
Because I'm trying to think, does he understand that now? Anyways, should I show? Yes. Bombón with my signature scent.
Wow.
Again?
I chose
Yeah, but that was
Infinitoud.
before. We're talking about now.
Yeah.
We're
I don't
talking
know.
about now.
But you love
Infinitoud is
wearing
old news.
Infinitoud.
Heard it
Okay,
here first.
get with the memo. We're talking House of Bow.
I'm living
and
in
now.
in the past.
The
I'm living in
present.
2023.
The present. Jesus.
Well, clearly, guys, you all know, like, he loves Bombón now. Like, he's obsessed with this fragrance.
Okay, so Giancarlo, does Bernardo have a guilty pleasure scent, one that's either universally kind of polarizing or maybe not
Yes, he
super
does.
popular?
But I don't know the name, but I know who makes it.
So, it's a fragrance from Diptyque, and the name is
Diptyque as well.
yes.
Yes.
I knew
Yes.
that was. He knows. It's like an inner joke that we have. So there's this fragrance from Diptyque that's called. I think they discontinued it because it really
For good reason.
There's a lot of cumin, and it's this spice that just gives it this kind of like very dirtiness to it. And I'm gonna try and keep it as like PG, but for me, it really smells like somebody's
male
sweaty
hormones.
Yeah,
Literally.
armpit,
Carnal.
but somebody who eats a lot of spices and who maybe has a lot of hair, and then you smell.
It is nasty. I
But
mean, every time you wore it, I was like, I am not leaving this house with you.
But in a very like sexual way, at least for me.
Oh, I didn't get that you were being sexual at all.
Yes, yes. So.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, so I think we're tied score-wise. So
Oh, yes.
Tiebreaker.
Okay,
tiebreaker. Bernardo, what fragrance or scent note triggers the strongest sense of nostalgia for Giancarlo?
It's one of our fragrances. You better remember. Seawater.
As an ingredient?
Yeah. The saltiness, the from Lamar.
That's what triggers you the strongest sense of nostalgia?
Yes. Where is my favorite place to be in the world?
He just wanted me to lose. Obviously. He's that competitive that he's like in a lie.
But
That is not like, that's never been a conversation. Espiritu is like, for both of us, I think, more for me, but I think also for Giancarlo, because it's a scent that really reminds me of. It's an homage to my dad, and there's a whole story behind
No,
the
I
creation.
agree with you, but I was thinking of like ingredients. If it were a scent, actually, yeah, Espiritu, but
You wanted me to lose.
No, I'm just saying, like, tell people where's my favorite place to be in the world. Where am I the happiest? In the ocean.
But
so anything that's aquatic, like or Lamar or Sireno, I'm obsessed with.
But we've talked about this before, like scents that remind you either of your mother. Remember, we did this thing for social media with a lot
scent
of people.
Of a mother.
And for you, like the scent that reminds you of your mother. Remember, it was French toast.
French toast,
right?
Yes.
In the morning.
Yes. That doesn't give me nostalgia. That makes me hungry.
Okay.
It's funny
so,
that
guys, I win. Thank you.
Actually, it was a tie. We're going to be politically correct.
That's true.
You know each other equally well.
Yes.
Very well paired.
Yes.
I love that you thought it was Espiritu because I remember that was the first one that I smelled over the aforementioned margaritas.
Oh, yes.
Years ago. And I was like, oh my God, I need to get my hands on this. And then you gave it to me at that table. And I'm so happy.
And honestly, Espiritu is one of our first 3 launches, but it's a fragrance that when people smell it, it just, it has like a nostalgicness to it. Like people will describe it like a warm hug or like something comforting.
People have cried.
Yeah.
It's a fragrance that has the most visceral reactions from people where you're like, what?
Like deep down,
Right,
I feel
yeah.
it deep down. And Rodrigo purposely, the way he explains it, by the way, Rodrigo Flores-Roux, is amazing because this ingredient that just magically ended up in this fragrance happened to be the tree that surrounded my childhood home. And it's a specific tree called macuilis, Árbol de macuilis. It was an accord that he was working on for a really long time. And what he wanted to capture with this woody accord was when you go into somebody's house and it smells like wood, but something that is almost like a memento, something that you just that captures this kind of like nostalgicness of like when you go into a home and it smells like wood. Anyway, he explains it much better.
I love that. Well, thank you for playing a little game with me.
Yes.
You're welcome.
And then I'm also curious, what fragrance rituals do you have throughout the day, and what is the role that fragrance plays in your life as we wrap up?
I love that question because I definitely have my own ritual, and I'm like you. I love beauty products, specifically fragrance, but all beauty products.
Occupational hazard as a beauty editor, yeah.
For me, here's the thing with fragrance. I feel like it's such a beautiful universe that it's always, I wouldn't want to put rules because that's what makes it so beautiful that you can just really do. There's no rules. You should be able to do whatever you want. But my ideal way of wearing fragrance is it starts with like clean skin, right? Almost like a blank canvas. And then you put our primer on. So our primer is like first in market, never been done before. And basically what it is just a hydrating moisturizer. So a lot of people don't know this, but you should always make sure that your skin is hydrated and moisturized before you put your fragrance on. Otherwise, if you put it right when you come out of the shower, your skin is too dry. And all it's going to do is going to absorb. And that's one of the biggest culprits for fragrance not lasting long. So really our primer is it's kind of 2-in-1 in a sense. It's nourishing. So it's hyaluronic acid, vitamin E, pomegranate extract. Or you could just use an unscented moisturizer, right? So clean skin, prep and prime your skin. And then I put my fragrance, and a lot of times I just wear one, but sometimes I do like to layer. And the way I like to layer fragrance is I'll put one here and then one here, and they'll combine in the air as opposed to one on top of the other.
I think a couple weeks ago, I like hugged you and I was like, what are you wearing? And you're like, started pointing to different areas of yourself.
I was like, where?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's something like I said, I don't like to put rules. Yes, you can put one on top of the other. If you do that, then you want to make sure that you put the heavier on the bottom. But I do like for it to combine in the air. It's definitely a ritual that I always use.
For me, I wear fragrance with intention. It's how I want to feel more than anything. It's like, if I'm going to a meeting that I feel it's important, then I'll use Infinitoud, right? Or if I want to try to make someone believe I'm a serious human being. But if I want to be like playful, or I'm going to go, meet a group of friends and, I don't know, just have a fun night, I'll use Bombón, for example. So I use it more of a way of self-expression. Fragrance for me is that self-expression.
Well, on that note, pun not intended, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm so glad we did this with you.